From this video, you're going to be learning the following typical themes for the Jobava London. How to expand the king side against the bishop f5 lines, how to deal with the quick bishop d6 move, how to play against the annoying pin with bishop b4, and in the later part of the video, we'll be covering the King's Indian / Pirk structure. Okay, we get the white pieces, going to be playing d4, d5, just going for the Jobava London right away with knight c3 and the bishop to f4. See what my opponent wants to do against this. It looks like he's just playing this left setup. We're just going to be getting the bishop to f4 and then playing e3, f3. That is generally the way to deal with this. Bishop on g4 with the idea to just try to fully expand on the king side. Bishop g6 only move now. Gonna be playing h4, threatening to win the piece, and black has a choice between either going one step ahead with a pawn or play h5. The difference though is that we play g5 now, and then bishop's coming into like d3, and with the pawn on g5 we will have ideas of pushing g6 after the bishop trade. Yeah, in the Jobava London, generally after they take on d3, most of the times you will be taking with a queen, even though in my London course, which is gonna be about like the positional London, not really with like the Jobava. I mean, we're gonna be playing the Jobava London sometimes when the enemy queen lands on like b6. That is sort of the universal approach to play knight c3 and try to get into a sort of an improved version of the Jobava, if that makes any sense. Yeah, in my course you'll see this move recommended quite a lot in like some positions, definitely not with opponents like this, but here, yeah, in the Jobava, yeah, commonly and yeah, like more often you're gonna see like queen takes on d3. This is like big threat, by the way, that some people tend to forget about. And opponent plays c5, and I think in this position he was already supposed to play g6 himself, because on c5 I think we could be potentially getting into some really annoying attacks. I've had some games with this idea. People normally react with like f5, but then we can actually like castle long and then either play knight h3 g5 and like break with e4, and I think we should be, yeah, doing well. I'm not like super sure about the specific details of this right now. Maybe it makes sense to play knight b5 first, trying to like get into the c7 square, but I'm just gonna be castling because I don't really know anything in this position. I'm just a guy playing on his own that's just trying to get his pieces out and break in the center, try to say that this king is perhaps a little bit misplaced. We do see c4. Gonna be playing queen d2. Funny idea, maybe queen h2 could be useful in some lines, keeping an eye on this diagonal. But yeah, most likely we're just gonna be playing e4, trying to open up the position and then use the e-file. Normally, I used to be quite afraid of this pawn being on c4 as an e4 player. Normally you see that theme coming from some lines in like the French defense, and whenever black gets like this kind of c4 move, yeah, just like b5 next and they're pretty much getting made at. But it's not really the case against the Jobava from what I have seen so far. And yeah, whenever they play with c4, you generally get very good play in the center with this e4 break. So threatening to win a pawn, really expecting some kind of knight b6 move, and yeah, then I guess we can simply play it slow, since the knight on b6 is kind of sitting in the way of his play with b5. But he does play bishop b4, which makes some sense. I think we have ed as a super clever move. He's kind of forced now to take, because taking with a pawn would allow me to unpin with tempo and then win the pawn. So I think this was kind of only move for him, like taking this way, and after queen takes he's recapping. But I think we have like rook e1 with like much better position anyways. But after this, I think queen e3, just unpinning with tempo. We can play knight e7, but we can just like take the pawn and use the fact that he's pinned, and I think we're just like straight up winning right now. He does play king f8. Queen e6 could be a nice idea, trying to go for the mate, but he still has queen e7 to defend, so simple as this, just taking the pawn, hitting the bishop, and Yeah, simplest win would be to just take there and go bishop d6 check next, followed by like either pick up the knight or queen e6 mate. So yeah, I think he's in trouble right now. Trying to actually understand why queen e6 is not like completely winning, but it does look to be winning, because like the only way for him to defend against the mate on f7 is by playing knight d8, but that is actually still running into, yeah, queen takes on d7 among other things. Maybe bishop d6 wins as well, but just gonna be playing queen e6. Yeah, defending the knight, threatening mate, hitting his knight. Such a multi-purpose move. I really like that move. So we do see knight d8 played, and this was, as I was like saying, maybe this is also sort of winning, but I think simply as just like cashing the knight. He can take that pawn. I mean, mate, you can have it. Then we can just like either go for the bishop check, and I think we're getting like mate somehow. I don't really see the mate, but I mean, could also simply take there, and there's like only one check because king can escape. So yeah, just gonna stick with like simple chess in general. Perhaps there was like a forced mate that I've missed, but this, yeah, just looks completely hopeless for my opponent. And yeah, like what I really love about this opening, we have managed to just win this game playing pretty much down a rook and a knight. I mean, also his rook is out of the game, but yeah, I think it's like kind of a nice picture. We do get the final touch with bishop d6, and then we are having the mate on e8. So yeah, that should pretty much do the job. And as I was like saying, I think in this position, instead of like bishop b4, he is supposed to like defend d5 with knight b6. But the problem whenever he plays like knight b6 is that, well, how is he ever gonna get like his queenside play? Like this would be like the desired play, just pushing pawns and trying to get some attack. But with the knight on b6 is not really gonna be the case. We have a super nice pawn center, and yeah, could just play like knight e2, perhaps bishop g3, knight coming into like f4, and then rook h e1. And I think, yeah, white is just like much better with this super soft pawn on e6. That's why like on g6, I think he was first of all supposed to play g6 himself instead of c5. And we're like still better after the same sort of typical motifs, e4, knight e2, castle long, and so on. But here at least like play f5, and yeah, I mean, we're still better, but not that clear, at least like this plans, I think. Okay, we're getting the white pieces, gonna be playing d4, just going for the Jobava London. Knight c3 pretty much on autopilot, and e6 bishop f4. Are we gonna see the same bishop b4 queen d3 line? That would be interesting. We see bishop to d6, which I'm actually not super familiar with. I'm guessing we can take and play e4, which should be fine. Yeah, I think we play that, and we're just trying to claim that we have sort of a better French. I think that's the play. I'm not like super familiar with it though. You can still play bishop g3 as well, I think, but I think taking and d4 is like the most direct approach. So he takes with a pawn, as I was saying, just going e4. Trying to open things up and say that we have a little bit of space. This bishop is like a bit more active than this one. And on d5, I think knight c3 is playable. Knight c5 as well. I kind of like knight c5 because we can actually maneuver it to like d3, and the knight is kind of nicely placed there. It's kind of insane right now, but I think you're gonna understand me later. Could also just, you know, I wanted this in the first place. Maybe we should just stick to this. Maybe we're sticking to knight g3. It's just sort of simple. This is like a little bit, it gets a bit sophisticated because then the bishop doesn't develop to like the natural square on d3. So I think we're just developing like this, playing c3, and we're just saying, well, we have a good bishop against bad bishop, so let's see. I think he should try something like this and then bishop a6, but I don't know if he's actually like able to achieve it. Because like b6, we can play c3, we can just knight there. Starting with c3, so we won't be harassed with like knight b4 stuff. Just bishop d3, and then we like castle and play yeah, try to get a grip on the e5 square pretty much. Opponent does play the move knight e7, I think trying to read out to like g6, but I think he just played like knight e5, activating this knight, and on knight g6, I think taking with a knight should be what the doctor ordered, but taking with a bishop is also not like that stupid. But definitely gonna be taking it with a knight. Okay, he just goes back. That is kind of strange. Get to set up like the sort of reverse stonewall with like f4. It's not really the reverse stonewall because we have no pawn on e3. It's like even better. But we just like reinforce the knight on e5 with f4. Just take back with a pawn, castle, and the knight on g3 is not really an issue, I would say. You can play knight h5. At some point, maybe after castle show, can even like reroute it like knight h1, knight f2. Probably not gonna do that, but it's like fancy maneuver sometimes, more typical for like the Zemish lines in the King's Indian / Benoni. So okay, opponent taking his time is like really hard for him to play with this stupid bishop on c8. That is really like the only issue that he has. If let's say he manages to trade off these bishops, I mean, still easier to play as white, but complex game. But okay, I mean, with this bishops, it's just like so easy to play for white, and yeah, I think we're having very good chances, and you should be having very good chances going into these structures. Okay, so we do see a6. Opponent might be preparing some kind of b5, b4 minority attack in the future. We don't really mind it, and we just go for short castle since like supernatural and very useful. He can't play b5 yet because the knight will drop. So he has to either defend the knight or take on e5. I think taking on e5 just speeds up my initiative. He will play like bishop d7, I'm assuming. But then ideally we would be able to play g4, g5 and the rook lift. But with the knight on g3 we might just play knight h5. Let's go h6. I think just knight h5 seems to be a natural move. Again, just trading pair of knights should also be fine. He takes, which is even better for me because it's bringing my queen into the attack, and now I can perhaps just rook lift. On queen f6 though, just g4 might be better. I need to play g5, and yeah, I mean, I've had a student where I told him that generally it wasn't like this particular position, but it was, I would say, with like queen instead of h5 being on e2, and with like queen d8 and then on knight on f6. I told him that the key in this position is to play like g4, g5 and open up opponent's king side, and I feel like he was afraid of the fact that his king might be getting weakened, but you have to think about it as well, yes, we're kind of overextending a bit, but if opponent has no pieces to attack us with, then that is like no longer a weakness. So can even use ideas to play king h1, rook g1 and use the g file for the attack and so on. So white is just getting really beautiful play, and on something like knight e5, if we take with the f pawn, he might be getting queen g5, trying to go for the end games. He is still like much worse even in the end games, but I think probably better take with a d pawn and force queen back to like e7, and then maybe go for a direct attack with like g5. Plays rook e8, but we're just gonna strike with g5. I think opponent is in trouble right now. Also like queen e7, there are motives, knight f7 and bishop g6, winning exchange. Okay, so after pawn takes, this only opens up the f file for the rook, and then yeah, we're kind of catching his king in a mating net. Is gonna be a funny checkmate after queen e7 check and then knight g6. So yeah, I think opponent is pretty much doomed at this point and has no counterplay, and we're gonna be seeing exactly that on the board. After king f8, we can go knight g6. It's gonna be a checkmate since the pawn is unable to take the knight because of the pin, and we do end up getting this win. And yeah, I think it was a very nice game overall. In the opening though, after knight bishop d6, I think maybe it's a bit more critical to take with a queen. I was a bit afraid of going e4 because of this check on b4, but I'm not necessarily sure of how those lines are working. So I think on queen d6 I would have just played knight f3 and then gone for like a slower setup, but I wasn't like yeah, super familiar with it. Anyway, so we get our white pieces against the 1250, so we're actually raising up the stakes a bit. Gonna be playing knight c3, going bishop to f4, heading Right for the Jobava London. Against bishop b4. I think play queen d3. We do see the exact line that I was actually talking about, and I've noticed this move recommended by Hans Niemann, I think, in his lifetime repertoire on Chessable. That is actually a super nice repertoire that I highly advise you to have a look on, at least if you're not familiar with it. I think it's dealing with like the latest trends in the Jobava London, and Hans also played it quite extensively against like top players with amazing results. So I think that's kind of telling it's a good course already. So gonna playing a3, questioning the bishop, and in case he takes, I think we take bishop there. I think I'm gonna start knight f3, and then the idea might be to play b4, knight a4, and then have like b4 defended. That's why I played knight f3. Plays knight f6. Just like b4. I think this is kind of the idea when they play with bishop a5. Then just get the knight to like a4. Yeah. Notice that if I would have gone for this immediately, he was able to take the pawn, but now it's actually well defended by the knight. And we have ideas of getting rid of this bishop. We could also like play knight c5 in some positions. It kind of depends. It's not the most standard thing ever. But another tricky plan that comes to mind that I've noticed usually with this queen placed on d3 is that you go g4. But I don't really think it works that well in this particular case. Because let's say after the g4, if he takes, sure, maybe we get interesting play. But if he doesn't, we play g5, he plays knight e4. Not sure how we're actually gonna get rid of that knight, and I don't think we're gonna really enjoy the game there. So perhaps I'm thinking to just play it slow with like e3, bishop e2, castle, try to play with like two bishops. I think that's more of a like solid approach. Yeah, just going for like the positional play. Eventually play c4, grab the bishop, and play on the queen side. I think that it's pretty much the plan now. Okay, so he does go h6, which does not really concern me that much. I think I can just castle, and if he plays like knight h5, which could be the idea, we have a choice between either bishop e5 and bishop g3. So now bishop d7, keeping an eye on this knight. It feels like a bit loose. It kind of makes me want to take on like b6. I'm not like forced to, but I think just for sake of simplicity, I'm gonna be doing it, and then I'm gonna be castling. Maybe again, I was not like forced to play that move yet. I could have still waited, but now okay, you have to watch out for it. Like knight b4 tactic, because rook is undefended. Just castling, connecting rooks, and yeah, I think you can just pretty much break with c4 on the next move if opponent doesn't do anything crazy like b5, which maybe was interesting move because like queen b5 there was knight d4, so maybe b5 was the way to go for him to keep the position closed. But now I think you can just play c4 and get like free advantage, because dc we play queen c4, b5 will be already a threat, problems on c7, and bishops are just way too strong I think in these positions. This guy's also kind of passive there on d7, and we're doing really really well. Maybe b5 still interesting, but worse because we can just drop the queen. Knight d5, just bishop g3, never really allowing knight f4 if we can, just like avoid it. And e4 ideas now. Additionally, probably bringing this rook over to like c1, because this one is doing a fine job defending the pawn on a3, and I think we just got a very nice sort of long-term advantage. Perhaps we can look for ideas to okay, he plays that rook. Maybe we can actually use this one now because it no longer needs to defend the pawn. Maybe now we get ideas to bring the bishop to b1 and set up the battery. That could also be a thing in this position. Even though maybe it helps to get a pawn to like e4, e5 first, because he will no longer have like a simply knight f6 move to defend. Anyways, like many plans, I think simplest is just to play like this and then d5 and break in the center. But if you're trying to get creative, setting up the battery could be an idea. Have to watch out for this move. He's probably trying to play bishop to b5, getting in some trades. I don't think I can actually avoid that, but it's not really a problem, I think. Yeah, I think we just play queen v3. It just looks like a very nice, solid move. Bishop b5, I think we trade and play like a4. Just looks super common. Also, okay, so he plays c6, but that is like such an ugly move. I think we just like could play e4, could centralize. I'm really thinking about some kind of ideas like this, getting the knight to like d6. Also could play e4 immediately. So like e4, knight f6, and then what? Like this, there. I can't draw arrows, so like knight f6, and then e5, knight e5. Okay, like set up the battery. Okay, you know what, guys? I think we're just gonna be playing like this. Just going into really, really slow. Setting up the battery, just trying to get a maneuvering game. Hopefully we can like finish everything with a nice mating attack thanks to this battery that I'm like about to set up. Again, sure, you can play e4 and be much better. Like, thing is, for my opponent, just look at this knight on a7. It's just so ugly, has no squares. That is like really the biggest issue that he has, and I'm just gonna be improving this bishop now, playing bishop b1, queen d3, as I said multiple times already. Rook is hanging, but we don't even take it. We don't really care about exchanges here, just playing for the mate. Sure, he can take, but like position is much better anyways. Okay, now he freaked out about the blunder, but okay, we just play e4, hitting the knight, plays knight f6, e5, knight d5, queen d3. He might be defending better there, so maybe just start with this, try to push e5, and then queen's coming over to h7, so maybe you need to start with g6 already, but then bishop h4 could be pretty annoying. g5, maybe even sack the piece with knight takes. So yeah, he finds g6, but maybe bishop. Now this is big threat. g5, I think, can like just sack the piece. Yeah, g5 as I was saying, but just like the piece sack, it just seems defenseless on the king side. Bishop takes e5, huge threat. He goes e5 himself, but then I think queen g3 wins. Bishop f6 and like d as well. So he just resigns, and yeah, I think that was like a pretty funny game. We already hit 1200, and yeah, there's like pretty much no way for him at this point to just deal with this like super powerful battery. So you can actually remember this construction. It's not like super typical, but when you have like a lot of time and space for maneuvering, ideas like this of like bringing the bishop around that it's, you know, currently not doing much on e2, give it the moves, and it's already like a beast on b1 combined with this queen. So yeah, the innocent looking bishop on e2 is actually the one that won this game. We're gonna be going for d4 and then playing the Jobava London. He does go g6. Playing knight c3, f4. Just gonna be going for the Austrian attack. Let's play knight c6. I remember covering this move, but I don't think it's great. Particularly after, I think, bishop g4, bishop e3, and then bishop f3 we take with a g-pawn. And knight f6. You just play d5. Okay, knight b8, I think. Could play bishop d3, castle short. Could also go bishop e3, queen d2, long castle, but I think this is like normal. Maybe this idea is bringing queen over like queen e1. Against c6, I think we'll take. Play like king h1. Black already losing? No, not really. It's very unclear position. I don't think I'm even better. It's an interesting opening like what he played. It's not that easy to understand. Like he played a sideline against the Austrian attack. Just h3. Taking with a queen. And now queen f2, hitting the knight. Knight d4, it's a bit pointless, I would say. Because it's a good square for the knight, but after queen f2 the knight is not really doing much and he just has to go back. So knight d4 was, yeah, pretty silly, I would say. Just has to go back and we get another tempo, bishop e3. Still, like, the position is not simple. Rook d1, maybe e5 ideas. The bishop g6 potentially. Like this, and then the discovery. Okay, on knight b4, that is actually a pretty clever move. E5 with a knight on d4, by the way, wasn't great because I can take with the f pawn and then pin the knight with bishop g5, and I think he's dropping material. So yeah, he just had to go back. And after knight b4, I think we just play e5. Like knight d3, we take with the rook, and then he's gonna be pinned on the d file, so he's unable to like take like that. And if he takes, then we have this discovery and we're better. I think we're just better after e5 now because we are up too many moves simply. I think if he moves the knight to like e8, well, among bishop b6 ideas, could also simply centralize with bishop e4 and just be much better. Knight d5 I think can be met by taking, and then perhaps simply bishop d4. Not sure though on that. So okay, on takes, as I was saying, I think this is a very important pawn that we take with a discovery attack against the queen. And on queen c8, well, we can simply move the bishop back, could also take with the idea to take the knight. Like the thing is with taking, I'm afraid he takes with the f pawn, opening up the rook, and then it could complicate a bit. So I'm thinking to just play like bishop d3, allow him to take with a knight, and then his king is like sort of weak. Yeah, I think that's the play. Taking with the rook. Can rook d8 just take, and it's resignable now because after he moves the knight, then pawn on f7 would hang, and after this we just take, and same. Knight is under attack and we take f7. On the next move with a winning position, yeah, only move king h8, but well, d4 seems to be like simplest, keeping everything defended. Wondering if there's more of like a concrete win, but I think this is like good enough. They can try queen f8, but all the endgames will be winning for me since I'm already up 2 pawns. Could also like queen f8, keep queens on with queen c4, defending the rook, but yeah, I think trading is also completely fine. Yeah, he's going for it. I think just go for the endgame. Okay, if he trades with 3 rooks as well, it'll just be an easier win. Knight d5, hitting the pawn. ev6, then just knight f4. Even knight c7 is good. I like knight c7 better because on knight f4 maybe he had bishop h6 sort of pinning me. So keeping his knight tied down to defending this guy, but okay, just like g4. Bringing then king over to like e4. Yeah, and now the plan is like this. King f3, king e4. Yeah, just like activating. Can play knight d7. Maybe there's like a funny tactic like knight e6, king e6, d5. Because on king e7 there's like bishop g5 and e6. Not sure that actually wins, so I'm not gonna go for it, but it's like a fun thing to keep in mind. So his idea is to play like knight b6 and knight d5 maybe, but knight b6 will have d5 ideas, so I'll just go d5, and on knight b6 we're playing d5. And like ed, take with a knight, and we have winning endgame. ed5 in some positions, if needed, you can even play king f5, and I think that wins as well, but I think just taking is perfectly fine here. Knight c4, but bishop d4 simply. Defending pawn on b2, and I have a threat of e6, and then we win the bishop. If he checks me, we can just play king f5, and no more checks. Okay, against that, simply we're checking him, and king e7, maybe bishop c5. Could also play king f5. Then we go e6 and we win the bishop because of the discovery. Okay, he resigns and we get a win. Okay, so we do get a white pieces. Gonna playing d4 and then just gonna be going for the Jobava London. Knight f6 just playing knight c3, threatening e4. Okay, we do see g6, and if he's playing the Pirk, I think we're just gonna be playing like the Austrian attack, because I have a chessable course about this. I have like extensive analysis. I've been playing these positions pretty much like my whole life as an e4 player, and I think they are quite deadly. And already I think knight d7 is quite an inaccurate move in view of e5. Yeah, I mean, really awkward for this guy on f6 to find a square. Knight h5 kind of runs into g4, and he has to go for the shameful retreat to g8. That is not a happy knight, I can tell you that, at least. Common theme that we have in the chessable course, by the way, is going for the positional approach, taking with a d pawn. That I think it's like sort of underground, and not like many people play like that, but I think it's like super effective and yeah, engine approved and very strong. But I think in this case, would take with this guy as well. I think I'm just gonna keep it like super positional though, just staying true to the theme of my like chessable course. Only move is like knight g8 and play like bishop e3 next. Still very hard for my opponent to like develop. Problem is that his bishop is also kind of passive, restricted by my pawn on e5. And yeah, okay, he has knight g4. I've actually forgot about this move. Completely forgot about this move, but it's not really an issue, since we can just like play h3, sending this knight home to like h6, and then we have ideas of either go g4 immediately or simply play bishop e3. I think just bishop e3 in this case, not really afraid of knight f5, since we can just drop the bishop to like f2, and then we have g4 ideas. For this reason, he could play h5, but then get a square for the knight on g5, which is like super nice. I think we'll start with like castling like this. Could also consider bishop d3 taking on f5. Again, like knight could be jumping on g5 any moment. He's trying to get like bishop to b7. I'm trying to evaluate whether throwing in e6 makes any sense. Probably not, because we're opening up his bishop. Bishop here would be kind of nice. He has c6 though. Knight g5 with the idea to take on f7 and then take on d7 could also be very interesting. But what I like the most, I think, is just going bishop out, and then we're sort of forcing my opponent to close his bishop with c6. Then we can just play like bishop to d3 and threatening to take on f5. This bishop is now passive. That was kind of good, because I mean, imagine he had the pawn on c7. The bishop was quite annoying on the long diagonal. And I think now opponent is in like a lot of trouble, because among other things, g4 I think is also a big threat. So opponent plays knight h6 in this position, sort of anticipating my move of taking. But now again, e6 looks like super juicy, because after pawn takes, we have bishop takes on g6 with check. I think we should like pretty much go for that. Here's also like knight f6 though. Trying to understand whether we can actually gain big advantage. I think we just take, and like knight f6, bishop g6, like winning endgame. King f7, like knight g5 wins the pawn on g6 again. We're like probably winning position. Do I have anything like better and making it trickier for my opponent to play? Something just like sort of activating like knight e4. No, I think we should just like go for e6. I think it's just the kind of move that you should be doing in these scenarios. Hitting the knight and yeah, just reminding him that he's got some pretty bad weaknesses around. So I'm just trying to combine some tactical ideas with positional concepts. Sometimes. So okay, he plays knight f6 as I was expecting. Gonna be taking, and after knight takes, we want to take with a bishop, because that is a free pawn. Perhaps in this position was even better to start knight e5, but I think he would have castled, and I sort of wanted to avoid that. And now I think king takes is a pretty bad blunder in view of knight e5. I'm also like considering to take on g6 immediately, but then I don't see like an immediate win. Maybe there's like some kind of f5. Just knight e5 is such a simple move that we should go for it. And yeah, winning g6, pretty simple stuff. Yeah, opponent doesn't really have any counterplay, and I think we're just doing very well. Okay, so we do see king g8. I'm actually considering bishop c4 check, but then king h7, and I don't really see the mate. We could definitely take, that's completely winning, but we do allow the queen trade, so I think it's best to just first of all play this. Okay, I mean, he just pre-moved king h7. I mean, he's kind of doomed anyways. There's like no way to defend this pawn, and we're keeping queens on, and he's gonna get mated. But on this, we're just like winning the queen thanks to this discovery. And he also presses the resign button. Thanks a lot for making it this far into the video, and if you're looking for more content, make sure to check out some of the previous episodes from the same series.